Hello, Nasdaq followers, and welcome to another edition of Behind the Bell. My name is Leanne Alfaro. I'm your producer and host here at Nasdaq. And joining me right now, following X4 Pharmaceuticals ringing the opening bell, is Dr. Paula Reagan, who is CEO and founder of CEO and president rather of X4 Pharmaceuticals. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's great to be here. Thank you so much.
And congratulations, X4 is now a Nasdaq listed company.
Thank you. We've been listed since mid-March, March 14th. Actually, it was a nice birthday present for me, so it was kind of an amazing coincidence, but we're very pleased to be part of the Nasdaq family. It's a great moment for the company.
Well, happy belated birthday.
Thank you.
and what a great present to be able, and I'm sure a lot of work went into this. 4 years leading up to this point where X4 has made immense strides. Could you tell us a little bit more about the company?
Absolutely. So the company was founded by spinning out a series of assets from a larger company that I had previously worked at called Genzyme. And it really was a labor of love. The assets needed to find the right home with the people who really cared about them to grow them to the next level. So that was spun out several years ago. We had founding investors, including some of the major Genzyme executives, as well as a few others from the Boston area. And since that time, we've raised over $150 million and developed the drugs now in many global countries. So we're not only developing the drug to help patients in the US, but also in Australia and South Korea, and we'll be opening up many more countries in Europe very shortly. So it's a great moment.
Now that's the definition of a worldwide company.
Absolutely.
So of course your company has a global vision for the way that it wants to reimagine the industry, but could you tell us what kind of changes you want to make in the industry with the strides that you're making in the company?
That's a great question. I think the industry has a lot of innovation at its core. Sometimes I think it gets a little lost. The larger companies just have different ways of thinking about things, but I think it's the smaller companies that keep the entrepreneurial spirit alive. I think the industry needs to continue to recognize how to continue to capitalize on that. Really, between the investor base and the committed people at these smaller companies, it's really, I think, the right recipe to develop innovation and keep developing it. I think sometimes the overall industry may get a little bit lost in some of the larger companies.
And on that note, speaking of innovation, what is a project right now that X4 is working on that you're excited about?
Yeah, our lead program, our lead asset is called mavorixafor. It's a small molecule, a capsule that we take once a day, and our patients do. And the exciting piece of this is that the drug helps the immune system function better. So the drug helps trafficking of immune cells that are normally not trafficking as well. And there's certain diseases that really, unfortunately, have a dysfunctional receptor that our drug helps. And so certain rare disease patients and then certain types of cancers have this dysfunctional immune system and actually a mutated gene that our drug addresses and potentially can kind of counteract the negative balances of those genetic defects. So we've seen some amazing results already, anecdotally, but the patients are doing extremely well across a number of our trials. One of our cancer patients had a complete response in our combination treatment arm, and then another one of our rare disease patients has had regressions of these lesions on their hand that have never been seen before. So it's just really exciting to see the patients feeling better and really having some meaningful steps forward in their own treatment course.
Absolutely, especially when you're tackling such unique and rare diseases that, I'm sure that this is like one of the only companies that serves that particular demographic.
It is, and there's, unfortunately or unfortunately, there's a lot of diseases out there that don't have adequate treatments, and that's, I think, where all of us, our heart is at. We really want to bring something new to these patients and meaningful. And so for our patients with primary immunodeficiencies, that whole field is just very underserved. There's treatments of the causes of the disease, antibiotics when they're infected, or they try to give some preventative treatments, but they just aren't well tested, aren't well studied, and certainly don't get at the core of the problem. Our drug hopefully addresses the core of the problem for many of these patients.
Absolutely. So tell me a little bit about what role being listed on Nasdaq plays now. What does the future of the company look like now, and how do you make kind of sense of it?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, firstly, I think it's wonderful that Nasdaq enables the connection of biotech companies with the right public investors. And so for all biotech companies, especially at ours, we're about 2 to 3 years away from hopefully commercializing our drug globally. That does take a lot of capital, and it takes investors with a long vision. And so I think partnering with Nasdaq, understanding how we can connect with that long-term vision of both the investors and partner that with the company's long-term vision. It's just a tremendously wonderful convergence of events through a wonderful organization like Nasdaq.
And finally, for any emerging companies, I mean, X4 Pharmaceuticals has 4.5 years or so in the running since it began. What advice would you have to founders and CEOs leading these new companies?
Yeah, I mean, if you believe in what you're doing, keep going. You know, a lot of folks need to just get better understanding of what it is you're doing, but as long as you always believe and you can keep communicating that, the world is going to understand that. Just be persistent, be passionate. Our patients are always the focus, and as long as you kind of keep that guiding light, I think, you know, it will work out. It takes a while, but it'll work out. So.
Perfect. That's great advice. Thank you so much, Dr. Reagan. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate being here.
Nasdaq followers, please stay tuned for more coverage right here from the Nasdaq market site. Until then, signing off.